What shoes do I need to wear? Click to listen to Pastor Deborah telling this story. Welcome again to Story Time with Pastor Deborah. Is everyone sitting down? Good. Shh. Everyone, let's get started. Today's story is called, What Shoes Do I Need to Wear? Do you remember the one who was stepping out of his closet of himself? Who had put on his best top hat, his crown and his tails, his robe of light? Good. Also, do you remember that he couldn't step out in the last story because he didn't have any shoes on? Now begins his story about his feet and shoes. Oh dear, the one forgot in all his excitement to think about what shoes he would need to wear with his top hat and tails. Should he wear his best dress shoes? His good walking shoes? His running shoes? Or should he go barefoot? What about some nice glittery sandals? The one knew he had to have everything coordinated, put together correctly for this glorious occasion of stepping out of the closet of himself and out into the vastness of nothingness. So off he went to his own thoughts, and he began looking through all the pairs of shoes he had to choose from. First, he knew he had to wash his feet and clean them up. He didn't want to put his finest shoes on dirty feet. So he thought to himself, and he washed his feet with his own words of living water. Water that would wash all dirt and dust from his feet and would prepare them to be clothed appropriately for this coming out occasion. So he sat down in his thoughts and took a washcloth and washed his own feet with his own words of living water, water of spirit and life that would wash all the dirt and dust from his feet and would prepare them to be clothed in his best shoes for this stepping out. Living water of his own words of his agape love, washing away any and all dirt from his own heart, dirt from his clinging thoughts of loneliness, of just being one, of all the sadness that was clinging to his feet in the closet of himself. The living water of life and light was needed. Also, he was washing away the dust from the darkness of the closet of his own self. For the dust of being just one had to be washed away. The one knew that becoming a new life form himself required him to no longer be living with his feet in the dirt and dust of loneliness. Dirt that had been gathering on his feet for such a long time. The one knew that his new life form, changing his life from being one to being a family, stepping out of the closet of himself, required him to also step out with feet of glory, clean, washed, toenails clipped, and then step into his most glorious shoes he had. Now He dried his feet with his own light of himself, for he was agape love. He was the light of life. He was the radiant, pure, living water of righteousness. He was the robe that would dry his feet, the robe of glory. He was done. His feet were washed of the dirt and the dust of loneliness, of just being one. His toenails had been clipped and trimmed. He had massaged them, for they needed to be strong and full of peace. He dried them with his robe of righteousness. He stood. He looked at them. They were ready for shoes. Now, what to wear? He knew that even his shoes would be important in his new life form, his new life. Outside of the closet of himself would be vital in his new life. He also knew he had to be able to have multiple shoes to wear, so his feet would be able to stand, or walk, or run, or climb, or whatever they needed to do to accomplish his desires of his heart. So he looked over his own thoughts in his imaginations. He saw sandals, plain ones and glittery ones, high heels, short heels, dress heels, flats, flip-flops, moccasins, running shoes, walking shoes, dancing shoes, everyday work boots with steel toes, all colors, and shoes for every occasion. His feet were interesting. They were as flames of fire, the color of amber, with rays of light shining out from them. So how was he going to put shoes on these feet? Since he was going to become a new life form himself, he decided that he would do the impossible. He would just take all of his shoes with him in his thoughts, so he could immediately change his shoes to fit the situation as needed. He knew he was going to be in many situations and have many different experiences, and his feet would need a great variety of shoes to be available for him to put on. What? How could he take that many shoes with him? The one who knew that even his new life form that he was to become, he still would retain all of his powerful abilities and powers to just think in his heart. And so it was created. The thought became reality. This was the law of faith, the law of creation, the law of speaking words of spirit and life, that he was himself. And now he would practice this out of the closet of himself. Now the one would apply his own laws to creation and to himself, as he would teach, train, and help his soon coming family, his spiritual children. He would create out of his own image and likeness. They also, in their new life form, they would have to become, after living in a form of darkness, of sin and death for such a long time. The one knew he had to apply his own laws of faith, speaking things into existence and believing in his heart that what was needed to himself, he would establish this law that he had applied to himself for his family to live by. Then he would have this law taught to his children, so they too would be like him, creating out of their thoughts, believing by faith in their words. So, the shoes he would wear would be many, appropriate for any occasion. But on this first step out of his closet of himself, he had to wear his most glorious shoes he had, shoes befitting his feet of glory, shoes of light. Shoes of light? Glimmering, shimmering rays of light in all of its colors of the hidden rays of the rainbow, colors hidden inside of the white light of glory, righteousness. So he put the shoes of his glory on his feet, shoes of white rays of light, shoes of the rainbow's colors, shoes shimmering, glittering out rays of light, rays of colors. So he thought. He put on himself, on his feet, the white shoes of glory, of victory, of his heart's purity. Wow! He had on his best top hat, his crown of glory, his formal tuxedo, his tails, his royal robe of righteousness. He had his scepter of authority, his signet ring of the kingdom. He carried the orb of the creations to come. Now he had on his best shoes, his shoes of white light, his glory, shoes of pure light, colors beyond imagination, shining out to all that was to come forth, creation. Now he could stand out in the vastness of nothingness on feet of pure light. All creation would see him in his finest royal attire from head to toe. He was ready. He believed, but he would go over still other areas of himself before he stepped out of his closet of himself. He desired so much to step out into the vastness of nothingness as a new life form, creator of all that is, Lord and owner of all life, father and mother of a royal family, king and judge of all the realms of life, the good shepherd of his creations and its creatures, and keeper and caretaker of his garden, Eden, the writer of ancient truths, laws, wisdom, righteousness, knowledge, justice, faith, freedom that would rule the kingdom of heaven, in heaven, and then out to the world covering a world yet to come. The designer of temples, houses of worship, thrones of majesty and glory, the builder of cities, lands, nations, and manager of resources, the hand in the darkness, the victor of war, overcomer of all his enemies that were to come, the judge of all the universe, the lawmaker of all law of agape love. Yes, he would take all of his different shoes that he would need with him in his new life. He would take all his shoes of his thoughts, his imaginations with him in his heart, so that no matter what arose, what situations arose for him, he would be ready. He would then never stumble or be inappropriate in his dress. His shoes would always be the right ones for his feet in every situation. Shoes of white, pure light he would put on. Now he was almost ready to step out of the closet, out of being just one. For one is a lonely number. Come again next time for story time in the garden with Pastor Deborah. The story is how the one took a deep look into his own heart to see if it would hold, had all it needed during times of loneliness, during battles to come. Was his heart strong enough for what laid ahead for it? Come next time, sit and listen, and always remember, one is a lonely number. Pastor Deborah.